Hello, my name is Jessica Smith, and this is my service learning project presentation. Okay, for my host setting and project, getting started on this project was probably the hardest part because it seemed like everywhere that I called or tried to get in touch with to do service learning was out of commission or they weren't running summer programs. So that was kind of discouraging getting started. So I got together with a classmate and we decided to develop our own project. The difficulty then being in finding children that would sort of qualify for the project's parameters. Our goal was basically to just spend some time with kids in the outdoors, as it was something that we both enjoyed. And thankfully, my partner knew a few children from her church that would be able to accompany us. To supplement this activity, I also spent some time with the Ocala Autism Support Group, which is a group of parents primarily of children with autism. We got together for some play dates, and I was able to learn a lot from just talking with them and observing and interacting with their children, and it was a very valuable experience. For our project, we had a group of girls. They varied from meeting to meeting, but in general, we had the same children, at least a few at each time. We took them to Rainbow Springs State Park and Silver River State Park. We had permission slips drawn up for the activity, and we planned crafts. We packed snacks, we had games, we took them on nature hikes, and to the Silver River State Park Museum, and they seemed to really enjoy it. We did 4 meetings with these girls on Thursdays and Saturdays in July. Um, the 11th, 13th, the 18th, and the 20th. Each meeting was about 3 hours long, and other time was spent for our service learning hours, meeting at the library to prepare for the project in general, and in transit. Um, Other hours that I spent were with the autism support group for a play date, a nature walk, games, and primarily discussion with the parents, which was invaluable. And that was on July 5th for several hours in the morning before the rain set in. The group is primarily young boys, which was something that I learned autism is much more common in young boys. It was a really valuable experience, and I'm glad that I did it, and I look forward to interacting with the autism support group in the future, just so that I can continue learning and be prepared for situations where I might encounter an autistic child in my teaching. So for our project, the girls were primarily between the ages of 5 and 10. They were Caucasian, English speaking, and one of them had ADHD that was diagnosed. ADHD is under the IDEA, a specific learning disability, which means a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or to do mathematical calculations. Um, she it was great that her sisters were along as well because it gave us sort of it made it better for our observations, sort of to see how she interacted with what we were doing versus how her sister, who does not have ADHD, interacted. So we could really clearly, see the difference between the two. For the autism group, it was primarily boys, like I mentioned before, everywhere between 4 to 12 years old, primarily Caucasian, English speaking, though some were nonverbal. And they were primarily Caucasian as well. Autism under IDEA means a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interaction, generally evident before the age of 3, that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Other characteristics often associated with autism are engaging in repetitive activities and stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change or change in daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experiences. That was really evident with some of the kids with their clothing. Shoes were hard to keep on the boys. Tags on shorts were difficult. Their mother went on to describe how they had very, very sensitive stomachs and dietary issues. So it was a really good experience. I learned a lot from it. So here's some pictures of our project. You see, we've got the kids at the museum. They had a touch table there with objects for that the kids could go and dig through and play and handle, which is why Silver River Museum is so great. Um, we also made bird feeders one day, which is what you can see there doing with the peanut butter, and we took the kids swimming, which for me was the most nerve-wracking part, but we stayed where it was by the stairs, and we made everybody have a noodle, and we had the permission slips, and we were very watchful, and there was a lifeguard on duty, so it was as safe as it possibly could have been. So that was Rainbow Springs and Silver River State Park. These are some pictures of the autism support group and playground. It was out by Liberty Middle School, I believe. And there's the park, and it had a little nature trail and a field around it. And throughout the day, more and more children with autism began to arrive, including a group from a local school. Perceptions of differences. For our project, we had the child with ADHD, and for her, things just moved at a faster pace. Often we would have to repeat ourselves to her or remind her to stay on track. We had to be more watchful with her. She transitioned very quickly from activity to activity. But what was great was we were in the outdoors and we were in the museum, and there was so much that is hands-on, and that just really applied and was very appealing to her. My initial thoughts when starting out the service learning project in general, I had tried to set up a meeting with the Therapeutic Writing Association, and I had thought that that was going to pan out, but then they didn't have any programs. And so there was a midsummer scramble to try to get something going, so I was a bit panicked about it, and but thankfully this project worked out, and it was a really great experience. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to work closely with these kids, both the ones with autism and the child with ADHD, just to become more familiar with how these children think, and I feel like service learning is really valuable. I feel like, and I'll say this again on a later slide, that experience is the best teacher. So for the autism group, I was really surprised with how much more similar the boys were to regular children, or children without autism, I should say. Because we see on the news every day children who are these extreme cases of autism who can't communicate, and we begin to think that that's what autism is 100% of the time, and that's not true. Most of these boys, if I hadn't known that they had autism, I probably wouldn't have picked up on it just in a casual interaction. So that was kind of an eye-opener. The fact that it was mostly boys, I hadn't been aware of that. And in talking to their mother, I learned about all sorts of theories about why certain children develop autism, from dyes in food to preservatives to vaccines and different things. I know that for the families in the autism group, diet was a huge deal for them. So they believed very strongly in monitoring what their child ate. Also, it was really interesting to see how the parents dealt with their child as they got overstimulated towards the end of the play date. Things, one parent had what she called special hugs, where she would squeeze her child about 10 times in a row, kind of rapidly, and that seemed to calm him down. So that was really interesting to watch um, as the day got on and they began to get overstimulated. So, several things that I thought about during this service learning that connected back to our course are listed here on the slide. Um, we weren't necessarily trying to teach standards during this project. We were primarily just trying to um, expose the kids to the natural world in a positive way. And so Universal Design, we worked to find something that would work well with the group and each child individually. And luckily, when you're in the outdoors and things are hands-on, that's more engaging, and so um, that worked out well for us. As far as with the child with ADHD, strategies and adjustments that were made in our plans. For each meeting, we had sort of a set schedule, but sometimes you got to change that set schedule to meet with the kids where they're at and what they're doing. Sometimes activities or crafts were canceled or moved to the next meeting, or snack time was moved up because the kids were fading, that sort of thing. And with the child specifically with ADHD, redirecting, refocusing, and of course revisiting. Um, when we went to the Silver River State Park, we visited the museum 2 weekends in a row, and I feel like that was beneficial for the kids because even though most of them had seen it already once before, to see it again just helps them retain better, and that's something that is important. I feel like in the classroom as well, is taking the time to revisit concepts and go back over things. Assistive technology, as far as that goes, an example of that, sort of with our project, would be the hands-on, um, like the touch table at the Silver River State Park, or the butterfly garden. There's so many different things that could be considered assistive technology, but also just the strategy of transitioning quickly and moving on when we felt like the students, our kids needed to move on. Civic engagement, I feel like, is extremely important, something to teach our students to do, to model for them, and to help them engage in. Um, it's one of the greatest things that we can pass on to our students. I feel like it helps develop understanding and empathy, and because experience really is the best teacher. I love volunteering. I love service learning in general. I feel like getting in and getting hands-on is one of the best things that we can do as students, and I like that UCF really incorporates that into its curriculum. Um, I wish that this course had been in the fall or in the spring when regular school was going on, so that I might have more of an opportunity to um, tag along with some sort of program that's in place that would give me, I guess, more exposure to a greater number of students and enhance that experience. But this being summer, we did what we could to get that done, and I feel like this was a valuable experience overall and that I learned a lot from it. Um, would I teach it to my students? Of course I would. I feel like it's invaluable to pass that along. So, reflection. Um, like I said before, I feel like service learning is really the best way to develop understanding and empathy. Um, and it's something that service learning is something that I've done before and I've enjoyed, and I remember doing as a student. Even in middle school, we we helped out with the Special Olympics, and that's something that has stuck with me ever since then. So I think that's really important, and I think as a teacher, it's important to look for those opportunities for our students to be engaged in the community in that way, and to participate in service learning in that way, to develop well-rounded students that are able to see the world through another person's eyes that maybe thinks differently than they do. I feel like teachers are vital for this, that we can act as a catalyst for social understanding and therefore social change. So, on a whole, as I mentioned before, I feel like this was a great project. This has been a wonderful course, and I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in something like this. Thank you very much.